We're going to be doing a vehicle inspection on a attenuator truck here. This is the process that we teach the MTA here for our CDL course. And this is what you'll be doing to pass your CDL test. And also, this is the vehicle inspection we should be doing or at your patrols and whatever yards you have and with whatever trucks you have. So we have a form here that we give out to everyone, and we have on our website as well. It gives a bunch of information on it and how to do the vehicle inspections and different wording or verbiage that we use for this. So as we start with the truck here, we're going to look at the whole truck itself. We're going to look standing far away. We're going to be looking underneath, seeing if there's anything that catches our eyes right off the bat, right? If there's something that catches our eyes, then we can call it out or write it down and go to that spot and figure out what it is, all right? Once we've done our whole vehicle walk around here, the whole exterior, we're going to start off with our front approach. Our front approach starts with our 3 L's, and our 3 L's stands for leaks, leans, and lights. All right, and so for us, we start at the top. We start with all of our lights. We want to make sure that our lights are present. They're not bent, broken, or cracked. They are clean, and there is no moisture inside the lenses. All right, so I'll start with my clearance lights. They're all there. They are the proper color, which is amber, for the front of the vehicle. They're not bent, broken, or cracked, and they're all properly mounted and secured, and they are all clean. Next, we'll move down to our headlights and our turn signals in the front here. First, I got my headlight over here. It is also multifunctional. It has low beams and it has high beams. With our turn signal as well, we have our right turn signal. It is also multifunctional. It has right turn signal, and it works with your four-way hazards as well. They're not bent, broken, or cracked. They're properly mounted and secured, and they are clean. We'll go to the left side over here. We've got our left headlight and our left turn signal. Both of them are multifunctional. We got low beams and our high beams for our headlights. And then we have our left turn signal, and it works with our four ways as well. It is not bent, broken, or cracked, and it is properly mounted and secured, and it is clean. Next, we'll move on to our leans of the truck. We want to look at the truck and see if it's leaning one way to the other, one side to the other, or if it's leaning backwards or forwards. With leans, we want to make sure that we're not having any suspension problems, we don't have low tire pressure, or our load is not shifted one way or another to create that lean. Last, for the front approach, we're going to be looking at leaks. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to look underneath the truck. Is there any puddles or anything, any indication of any kind of leak underneath the truck itself? And if so, we can identify that, and then we can go check to see what fluids are low on the truck. And that is it for our front approach. So next, we've opened up our hood. We're going to check our engine compartment. First thing we're going to check is our fluids. We got 3 fluids that we need to check. The first fluid is our coolant. Our coolant reservoir is properly mounted and secured. It's not bent, broken, or cracked. It has liquids in it, so when we are dealing with liquids, we want to make sure that we do not see any visible leaks anywhere around the reservoir itself. Our reservoir level is in the correct operating range. It is above minimum and below full. With our reservoir, we have some hoses that are attached to it as well. With these hoses, they're all properly mounted and secured at both ends. There's no visible leaks, and there's no abrasions, bulges, or cuts. When it comes to rubber hoses, anything rubber material, we're going to use that acronym ABC, which stands for abrasions, bulges, or cuts. And so with these hoses, they're all properly mounted and secured. There's no abrasions, bulges, or cuts, and there are no visible leaks coming from them. All right. Next, we're going to check our engine oil. Engine oil is right here, yellow dipstick. You'll pull it out. We'd have a rag, wipe it off, put it back in. Reattach, and then take it back out to get an accurate reading. And what we're going to be looking for, that we're not above the full mark here, and also it's not below the add mark. So we want to be in between this safe zone right here. Our steering fluid, which is right here in the power steering reservoir. Our power steering reservoir is properly mounted and secured. It is not bent, broken, or cracked, and there are no visible leaks around the reservoir itself. To check the fluid, I'm going to pull the cap here, loosen it up, take it off. Okay. Again, just like the engine oil, we're going to take it out, wipe it off the first time, reinstall the cap, tighten it down, pull it out, and check our levels. Just like the oil or the engine oil, we have a range here. We got full and add. We want to make sure we're within that full range. Reinstall the cap. Okay. Also, too, with the power steering reservoir, we have a couple hoses attached to it as well. They are properly mounted and secured. There's no abrasions, bulges, or cuts, and I do not see any visible leaks around these hoses. So those are the three fluids we check: our coolant reservoir, our coolant, our engine oil, and then our power steering fluid. Next, we're going to go over engine components. In engine components, we got 4 areas that we're going to be looking at. We're going to start over on this side over here, get those 2, and then we'll come back. Alternator is not bent, broken, or cracked. It is properly mounted and secured. And all wires are mounted and secured at both ends, and there's no damage or arcing anywhere. This alternator is also belt driven. The belt is not cut or frayed and has no more than 1/2 inch to 3/4 of play. All right, so next is our water pump. And our water pump, it is not bent, broken, or cracked. It's properly mounted and secured. And there are no visible leaks because it deals with liquids. Our water pump is belt driven, and the belt is not cut, frayed, or damaged in any way, and it has no more than 1/2 to 3/4 inches of play. Next, we're going to be looking at our air compressor. Our air compressor is installed right here. It is not bent, broken, or cracked. It is properly mounted and secured. And the air compressor deals with air. So when we have components that deal with air, we need to make sure we do not hear any audible air leaks from that. And at this point, we do not hear any audible air leaks. And when we turn the vehicle on later on, we will be able to confirm that the gears inside are not bent, broken, or cracked and are all working properly. And the last component we're going to be checking on the engine component area is going to be our power steering pump. And to find our power steering pump, you will follow the lines from the reservoir or the steering gearbox down to where the power steering pump is, which is buried behind the air compressor. All right, the power steering pump is not bent, broken, or cracked. It is properly mounted and secured, and it has fluids in it, so we do not see any visible leaks from the power steering. With the hoses attached to it as well, they are not bent, broken, or cracked, or do not have any abrasions, bulges, or cuts. Next, we're going to move into our steering components. The first component we're going to look at is our steering shaft right here. It is not bent, broken, or cracked. It is properly mounted and secured, and it does not have no excessive play in the steering shaft itself. The U-joints are free of any debris. Next, we'll move on to our steering gearbox, which is right here. Our steering gearbox is not bent, broken, or cracked. It is properly mounted and secured. And I do not see any visual leaks anywhere around the steering gearbox. It does have hoses attached to it as well, and those hoses are all properly mounted and secured. They're not bent, broken, or cracked, and no visible leaks coming from them as well. The pitman arm is not bent, broken, or cracked. It is properly mounted and secured, and it is properly mounted and secured by the castle nut, which has a cotter pin that is going through it, and that cotter pin is present at this time. The rubber bushings over here on this side, on the back side, are not torn. There's no abrasions, bulges, or cuts. And attached to that pitman arm is our drag link right here. Our drag link is not bent, broken, or cracked. It is properly mounted and secured by castle nuts on both ends as well. And with those castle nuts, there are cotter pins attached at both ends. Next, we're going to move to our upper and lower control arms. Our upper control arm is right here. And then our lower control arm is on the back side over here. They're not bent, broken, or cracked. They are properly mounted and secured. and they are also attached with castle nuts and cotter pins, which are present. And last is our tie rod. Our tie rod is on the back side here, goes all the way over to the other side. It is not bent, broken, or cracked. It is properly mounted and secured, and it is attached with castle nuts with cotter pins that are present as well. Next is going to be our suspension system. With our suspension system, we're going to start with our leaf springs here in the front. Our leaf springs are right here. They are not bent, broken, or cracked. They're properly mounted and secured, and they are not scissoring, showing that the U-bolts are loose, and there are also none missing at this time as well. Our leaf springs are attached at the front mount and rear mount. The mounts are not bent, broken, or cracked. They are properly mounted and secured. Next, we're going to look at our U-bolts. Our U-bolts, they're properly mounted and secured. They're not bent, broken, or cracked, and they are properly mounted and secured by nuts on all four ends here. And last, for our suspension, we're going to be looking at our shock absorber. Our shock absorber is properly mounted and secured to the frame. It is not bent, broken, or cracked. We do have rubber bushings on both ends. They're not dry rotted or damaged in any way. And also too, this shock absorber does have fluid in it, and we do not see any visual leaks coming from the shock absorber. Starting off with the brake system, we got our air hose. Our air line has no abrasions, bulges, or cuts in it because it is rubber. It is properly mounted and secured, and it deals with air, so I do not hear any audible air leaks. Our air lane goes into our brake chamber. Our brake chamber is properly mounted and secured. It is not bent, broken, or cracked, and I do not hear any audible air leaks coming from it at this time as well. Our brake chamber clamp is not bent, broken, or cracked. It is properly mounted and secured, and there's no audible air leaks coming from that area as well. Our push rod is not bent, broken, or cracked. It is properly mounted and secured. It is coming out of the brake chamber at a 90-degree angle, and I do not hear any air leaks at this time as well. Our slack adjuster is not bent, broken, or cracked. It is properly mounted and secured, and it is not loose. And there should be no more than 1 inch of play with our slack adjuster. Next, we'll move over to our brake pads. With our brake pads, they're not bent, broken, or cracked, and they're properly mounted and secured, and they must have a minimum of 1/4 inch of pad depth, and there are no signs of heat, which would be cracking or glazing. With our brake pads, we have our brake drums. They're not bent, broken, or cracked, and they're properly mounted and secured, and they have no bluing from excessive heat. Next, we'll move into our wheel and tire section. We'll start with the inside wheel and inside tire. The inner rim is not bent, broken, or cracked, and it is properly mounted and secured, and there are no welding repairs done to this wheel or illegal welds. Tire condition, there are no abrasions, bulges, or cuts. The sidewalls have no splits or cuts, and the tread is evenly worn across. There are no retreads for the steer tires. The tread depth needs to be a minimum of 4/32 on each rib here. With our outer wheel, we have no bends, it's not bent, broken, or cracked anywhere. Do not see any illegal welds, and it is properly mounted and secured. With the sidewall, there's no abrasions, bulges, or cuts. There's no slices in them as well. And then with our tires, we have a valve stem here. It is not bent, broken, or cracked, properly mounted and secured, and there's no audible air leaks coming from them. I would check my tire pressure with an air gauge and an air gauge only. Also, with my valve stem, it has to have a metal cap on it. It cannot be a rubber cap. There must be a metal cap, and it is present at this time. Next, I would move into my lug nuts. My lug nuts are all properly mounted and secured. They are not bent, broken, or cracked. And I do not see any rust trails coming from them or any shiny threads indicating of a loose lug nut or a broken lug nut. Next, I'll be looking at my axle or my hub seal. My hub is not bent, broken, or cracked. It is properly mounted and secured by all these bolts here. And I do not see any visual leaks coming from my hub seal. And if I were needed to check my level of my fluid, I'd pull this rubber cap off and see if I had fluid on the backside of this. On the side approach of our vehicle, we're going to start with our mirror bracket. Our mirror bracket is not bent, broken, or cracked, and it is properly mounted and secured. With our mirrors, we're also going to check and make sure there's no illegal stickers on them. Our mirrors are clean. They're not bent, broken, or cracked. Okay. Next, we're going to check our door. The door must open and close properly. The door handle must work as well on both ends, on the outside and the inside. It is not bent, broken, or cracked or damaged in any way. It is properly mounted and secured. And with our door, we're also going to be checking our hinges on the inside here. We're going to make sure they're not bent, broken, or cracked, and they're properly mounted and secured. And we would check to make sure. We would lift on the door a little bit and make sure it does not move. With our door, we're also going to be checking our weather seal here. Our rubber seal. Make sure there's no abrasions, bulges, or cuts, or any kind of type of damage to this rubber seal. All right. It is present and is properly mounted and secured. I do not see any major damage to any of our doors here or any of the cab. Next, we'll move down to our steps. Our steps are properly mounted and secured. They're not bent, broken, or cracked, and there's no excessive debris on the steps that would cause slip, trips, or falls. Next, we'll move on to our fuel tank. Our fuel tank is properly mounted and secured. It is not bent, broken, or cracked, and it does have fluid in it, so I would check to make sure there are no visible leaks coming from the fuel tank itself. Next, I would check our fuel tank cap. I will take the cap off. I will check to make sure that the emergency safety chain is attached. We're also going to check the rubber seal inside of it and make sure it is not dry rotted or missing. The fuel cap is not bent, broken, or cracked, and it is also properly mounted and secured. This particular truck has a DEF tank. We're going to check it just the same way as our fuel tank. We're going to make sure it is not bent, broken, or cracked anywhere. There's no damage. It is properly mounted and secured. And I do not see any visual leaks coming from the fuel or the DEF tank. I will remove this cap. Make sure we have the strap, the safety strap to attach to the cap. And we also have a seal on this one. We want to make sure it's not dry rotted or missing. To check the level of the DEF tank, we would pull our filter out and look inside the DEF tank and to check our level. The cap does attach properly. It is not bent, broken, or cracked, and it is properly mounted and secured. Next, I would move on to this door. Check and make sure that this door opens and closes properly. I would check the hinges as well. Make sure they're not bent, broken, or cracked. They're properly mounted and secured. And I would lift on the door to check that as well. I would check this rubber seal as well. Make sure that rubber seal, it has no abrasions, bulges, or cuts. There's no damage to it. It is properly mounted and secured. Next, I would check my battery boxes. I would take these off, look inside the battery box, and with this one, we do have some corrosion on the cables. I would check to make sure the batteries are properly mounted and secured. None of them are bent, broken, or cracked, and I do not see any visual leaks coming from them with battery acid. With this cable, though, I do see some corrosion on it, so I would mention it to the mechanics and get it cleaned off. The battery boxes themselves and the holders, they're not bent, broken, or cracked. They're properly mounted and secured to the frame. The stairs are the next steps. They are properly mounted and secured. Not bent, broken, or cracked. And there's no excessive debris on the steps that would cause a slip, trip, or fall. Next, I'm going to be looking at the body of my truck down the side. I'm going to be looking down, making sure there's no major damage, no bends, no cracks anywhere, anything missing or hanging off. All right. I'm going to be checking all of my attachments, making sure all my doors are all properly mounted and secured. Nothing is loose coming off the truck. Next, I'm going to be checking any lights that I may have. May have some clearance lights. I got to work like here. They're not bent, broken, or cracked. They're properly mounted and secured, and they are clean. From here, I have an opening. I can see my frame and my drive shaft. It is not bent, broken, or cracked. It is properly mounted and secured. And then our frame, right here. Our frame, it is the core of our vehicle. Everything is attached to it. Everything is properly mounted and secured to the frame. With the frame, there's no bends, breaks, or cracks in it, and there are no illegal welds on it, and I do not see any indications or signs of twisting in the frame. Next, I'm going to go down. I'm also going to be looking at my DOT tape. My DOT tape is right here, red and white in color. It cannot be damaged, must have 100% reflectivity. If there is some slight damage here, we can report it to the mechanics and have them replace it if need be. Next, we're going to move back to this back axle here. Similar to the front axle, with the back axle, we're going to start from the inside out. With this axle, I have leaf springs for my suspension. My leaf springs are not bent, broken, or cracked. They're properly mounted and secured. There's none missing, and they're not scissoring. I have two spring mounts, a front and a rear. Want to make sure my front and rear spring mounts are not bent, broken, or cracked. They're properly mounted and secured. We also have two U-bolts back there holding the springs together. We want to make sure they're not bent, broken, or cracked, and they're properly mounted and secured and have nuts on each end of them. With the suspension, we also have, in some cases, we have a shock absorber or airbags. With the shock absorber, we're going to make sure it's not bent, broken, or cracked, properly mounted and secured. The rubber bushings on both ends are not damaged or dry rotted in any way. And we're also going to make sure there is no visual leaks coming from that shock absorber. If we were to have airbags on this truck, we want to make sure the airbags have no abrasions, no cuts, no bulges in them. There's no damage to them. They're properly mounted and secured. And there's also no audible air leaks coming from them. We also have air lines going that are attached to those airbags. We want to check the air lines attached to them. Make sure they're not bent, broken, or cracked. They're properly mounted and secured. And there's no abrasions, bulges, or cuts to them as well. And no audible air leaks. Next, we're going to move into our brake system. Our brake system, we have an air line just like the front. We're going to check and make sure there's no abrasions, bulges, or cuts to it. It is properly mounted and secured at both ends. And on that air line, we want to make sure there's no audible air leaks coming from it. Next, we'll move to our brake chamber, just like at the front. Our brake chamber is not bent, broken, or cracked. It is properly mounted and secured. And there's no audible air leaks coming from the chamber itself. Next, we would check our brake chamber clamp. It's not bent, broken, or cracked. It is properly mounted and secured. And I do not hear any audible air leaks coming from that area. Next, we'll move to our push rod. It is coming out of the brake chamber at a 90-degree angle. And there's it's not bent, broken, or cracked, and it is properly mounted and secured, and it can have no more than 1 inch of play. The slack adjuster is not bent, broken, or cracked, and it is properly mounted and secured. Then we'll move on to our brake pads. Our brake pads are not bent, broken, or cracked. They're properly mounted and secured, and they must have a minimum of 1/4 inch of pad depth on them. There are no signs of heat, which would be cracking or glazing. Next, we'll move into our brake drums. They're not bent, broken, or cracked. They're properly mounted and secured, and they have no bluing, which would be signs of heat. Next, we'll be moving into our rims. We've got 2 tires on this and 2 rims on this truck. So we'd be going to the inside and look at the inside of the rims, making sure they're not bent, broken, or cracked. They're properly mounted and secured, and there are no illegal welds or welding repairs to them. I would check the outsides of my rims. Make sure they're properly mounted and secured. They're not bent, broken, or cracked. And I do not see any illegal welds on the outsides of them as well. With my tires, I'm going to make sure there's no abrasions, bulges, or cuts, and the sidewalls have no damage to them as well, outside and inside on both tires. On both tires, I'm also going to be checking, making sure they're evenly worn on the top. They're not cupping. There's no damage. There's no treads missing. With the rear or the drive tires, you must have a minimum of 2 seconds of tire tread depth. Also, with our 2 tires or dualies here, we're also going to be making sure, looking inside there, making sure that the rims are flat together and there's no spacing in between the rims. We're going to make sure there's no damage to them as well. We're going to make sure there's no debris in between the tires or the duals themselves, like a rock or anything like that. As we come out to the outside here, we're going to be checking our valve stems. We got 2 valve stems, one on the over here and one on the inside over here. They're both properly mounted and secured. They're not bent, broken, or cracked. I do not hear any audible air leaks coming from them. They also have a metal cap attached on the ends of them. And again, it must be a metal cap, not a rubber cap. To check the tire pressure of each tire, I would hook on a tire gauge to them, and that is the only way to check your tire inflation. Next, we'll move to our lug nuts here. We'll check every one of them, make sure they're not bent, broken, or cracked, and they're all properly mounted and secured. And I do not see any rust trails coming from them or any shiny threads to indicate a loose lug nut. Next, we'll move to our hub, and our hub is properly mounted and secured. It is not bent, broken, or cracked, and I do not see any visual leaks coming from the hub itself. I will check every nut on here as well. Something that is not on this truck that we would check on most trucks is mud flaps. Typically our mud flaps would be attached right behind the tires here, the last tire. We want to check the support and make sure they're properly mounted and secured, and that there's no damage to either one of the mud flaps. We want to make sure that they're not hanging too low or hanging too high as well. So as I move to the back of this truck, I'm also looking at the side of it and looking for any major damage, anything hanging off, falling off. Here I have lights all around, and I'm going to be checking all my lights and reflectors, making sure that they are properly mounted and secured. None of the lenses are bent, broken, or cracked, and they are all clean in the correct color. Now we're going to be looking at the rear of the truck. Some of our trucks have different attachments or accessories on them. With this one, we have the stinger on the back of this. Some of them may have a lift gate. And to check everything, you want to make sure that they're not bent, broken, or cracked, and everything is properly mounted and secured. If you have a tailgate or a door, we want to make sure it's not bent, broken, or cracked, and it's properly mounted and secured with the pins and cotter pins and dog ears all attached as well. With this one, we've got the stinger here. It is properly mounted and secured. I do not see any bends, breaks, or cracks in the stinger itself. Making sure there's no visible leaks because I do have a hydraulic pump back there as well. It is properly mounted and secured, not bent, broken, or cracked, and there's no visual leaks coming from any of the hoses or the pump itself. I'm also going to be checking my DOT tape, making sure that my DOT tape is installed and properly mounted and secured, and there is no damage to them, and there is also 100% reflectivity coming from the DOT tape. Next, I'll check my lights. They are all properly mounted and secured. None of them are bent, broken, or cracked or damaged in any way. They are clean and they do work properly. So once we're done with the rear of the truck, we're going to move over to the passenger side of the truck. And just like the left side of the truck, the driver's side, we'd be doing the same thing over on the passenger side. You would name out any accessories or attachments that are different on this side. There are 2 different things on this side that are different from the driver's side. But I'll also be checking the side of the truck here, making sure there's no major damage, anything that catches my eye. And all the attachments and doors are all properly mounted and secured. They're not bent, broken, or cracked. And they're not going to be coming open, flying open. The 2 things that are different on this side that are different from the driver's side, we have our exhaust system here. Our exhaust system is not bent, broken, or cracked. It is properly mounted and secured. And I do not see any black soot or any indications of any exhaust leaks coming from any of the clamps or anywhere on the exhaust system itself. Next, I have my 2 air tanks here for the truck. Both air tanks are not bent, broken, or cracked. They are properly mounted and secured. And I do not hear any audible air leaks coming from the tanks themselves. As I look at all my hoses attached to my tanks, there are no abrasions, bulges, or cuts, or any damage to the plastic hoses. They are properly mounted and secured, and I do not hear any visual or audible leaks coming from them. Okay, so now we're going to do our external light check. We're going to make sure all the lights on the truck do work properly and they're all the same color. First, we're going to start off with our clearance lights. At the top here, we got 5 orange clearance lights. They are all properly working. We've got our parking lights here on both sides. They are both properly working. We have our headlights here. This is our low beam function. Again, these are multi-functioning lights. And right now we have our low beams on. And they are both working at this time. Next, I'm going to be checking my high beams, making sure my high beams work. I'll pull my switch, make sure both high beams are working on both sides. So next, I'm going to be checking my turn signals, making sure both sides work. First, I'm going to be checking my left turn signals, making sure it works on the front of the truck, and also any other on the side fender on the driver's side. Next, I'm going to be checking my right turn signal, making sure the right turn signal works on the front of the truck and also on the fender if it has it. Also check your mirrors. Make sure the mirrors, if they have any indicator lights on them, that they work as well. Next, I'm going to be checking my 4-way flashers, making sure my hazard lights do work on both ends. Check your fenders as well, and also check your mirrors if they come on as well. Okay, so next we're going to go from the front of the vehicle to the left side of the vehicle. The left side of the vehicle, we have just 3 things that we need to check. The first thing is our left turn signals. We're going to turn the left turn signal on here. Make sure that it works there. Next, we're going to check our 4-way flashers. Make sure our 4-way flashers work there in that same spot. Then next, we will make sure any clearance lights that are on the side of the truck are working properly as well. Okay, so as we're checking our clearance lights, we do notice this one right here is not working. So we would mention that to the tester or to your mechanics and get it reported and get it fixed. Next, we'll be checking the back end of our truck here and also on the stinger here. All right, we'll be making sure my tail lights are all working on both sides. Then we're going to move into our turn signals. We'll check our left turn signal, make sure our left turn signal operates functionally. We'll check our right turn signal, make sure that it is working correctly. So we can see here, we have our right turn signal on. It is working on our attachment, our stinger. It is not working on the truck. We do have either a faulty light or wiring issues. And if we have any issues with the truck, we would report it to the mechanic or to the tester. Okay, once we've checked our right turn signal, we're going to check our 4-way flashers. Make sure they work on both sides. And with the rear of the truck, one last thing we have to check is the brake lights and make sure when I hit the brake pedal that all my brake lights turn on. So next I'm going to be doing my right turn signal. I'll be checking my fender, making sure the right turn signal on the fender does work. Next I'll be checking my 4-way flashers, making sure that fender light does light up with the 4-way flashers on. Last but not least, I'll be checking the clearance lights on the side of the truck itself, making sure all clearance lights, if there are any, do work properly. I do have one right here that is amber and it is correct color. And at the rear of the truck, I do have another one that is red, which is the correct color as well, and it is working as well. The first thing, we're going to start with our in-cab inspection. The first thing here that I'm coming up to is our fire extinguisher. It is properly charged and rated, and it is properly mounted and secured. There's no visual leaks coming from it. I do have an inspection tag on it, and it is inspected correctly. To make sure that it is charged correctly, I would look at the gauge here and make sure it is in the green section there. So we'll continue on with our safety items, our 5 safety items that is part of our in-cab inspection. We started off with the fire extinguisher, make sure it's properly mounted and secured and it is properly rated and charged. Next, we're going to check our seatbelt. We're going to make sure that there's no damage to it. There's no frays. There's no cuts. All right. Next, we're going to check and make sure that it latches correctly and it does hold. We want to make sure that it unlatches. And then we're going to latch it back on or attach it back to get back into to go with our next step here. Next, we're going to check our triangles, which are right here. We're going to pull the box up here. We want to make sure that they're properly mounted and secured, and that there are 3 of them in here. They are all red and orange in color, and they're not damaged or broken in any way. And these ones are brand new. Next, I'm going to be checking my fuses. My fuses are over here on the passenger side. I'm going to take off the plastic dash there. I'm going to check and make sure all my fuses are properly mounted and secured. These are resettable relays. And if I were to have any extra fuses, I would have them in this compartment right here. And then last, we're going to check our horns. We got a city horn and a highway horn. Highway horn is up here, the air horn. We would pull on it, make sure it works. And then our city horn is right here on the steering wheel. We would hit it and make sure it works as well. Next, we're going to go to our key on, engine off checks, which means I'm going to have my key on without starting the engine. When I turn my key on, my ABS light will come on. So my ABS light comes on and it does go off, and that tells me that my brake system is properly working at this moment. So with my key on, engine off checks, I'm going to be checking first thing mirrors. Making sure my mirrors on both sides can adjust properly and move to where I need them to move. Again, we're going to make sure they're not bent, broken, or cracked, and they're all properly mounted and secured. And make sure that there are no illegal stickers that I see from earlier. Next, we're going to be checking our windshield, making sure that it is properly mounted and secured. I do not see any cracks on it or any type of damage, and that there are no visual leaks coming from the seals around the whole windshield. Also with the windshield, we want to make sure that there is no illegal stickers on it as well. Next, we're going to check the wipers. We're going to make sure that the wipers are all properly mounted and secured. There's no damage to them. They're not bent, broken, or cracked. And also that the wiper blades themselves are properly mounted and secured, and there's no damage to them as well. Once we've looked at our wipers, we're going to check and make sure that our washer fluid comes out and sprays properly. Next, we're going to check our heater and defroster. So first we'll move the heater or the temperature over to the hottest function. We'll move over to the defroster and we'll turn the fan on. Once it has started, we'll put our hand up here and make sure that we do have airflow up on top where the defroster is. Next, we're also going to check and make sure that our floor heating function works as well. And I do have airflow down here. And you want to reach down here and actually physically try to feel for that airflow. Last, we're going to check our indicator lights on the dash itself. First thing we're going to do is check our left turn signal. Make sure that our left turn signal works. We're going to check our right turn signal. Make sure that our right turn signal works. Next, we're going to check and make sure our bright blue light comes on. And last, we're going to make sure our four ways come on the dash as well. Which that does. All right, that is it for our key on, engine off checks. Next, we're going to perform a safe start. And to perform a safe start, first we're going to check and make sure that our parking brake is engaged by pulling on it. We're going to make sure our vehicle is in neutral. And on this one, our shifter is on our steering column. And it is in neutral right here. Once we've verified that we are in neutral, then we can put our foot on the brake. And if it has a clutch, you can go ahead and depress the clutch pedal as well. But I'll put my foot on the brake and I will start the engine. When starting the engine, you want to make sure that ABS light did come on and go off, that we checked with the key on, engine off. Sometimes that ABS light will stay off once you do your key on, engine off checks. But we do not have an ABS light on the dash right now which is indicating or telling us that our ABS system is properly working. Next, with the engine on, we're going to be checking our gauges. First gauge we're going to check is our oil pressure gauge. Our oil pressure gauge is working, and it is rising to or at operating range. And there are no warning lights or warning audible alerts letting me know that there is a malfunction with that gauge or the system itself. Next, I'm going to go to my coolant temperature. My coolant temperature gauge is properly working. The gauge is rising to or at operating range, and there are no warning lights. Next, I'm going to check both of my air pressure or air tanks. Both air tank gauges are properly working. They are rising to or at operating range, and there are no warning lights indicating of any issues. Next, I'll check my voltmeter. On this one, it is on the digital dash. Some of them may be an analog gauge like the coolant and oil pressure. And on this one, I'm at 14.1 volts. Our volts should be within that 12 to 14 range. And there are no warning lights indicating that there is any issues with the charging or battery system. Okay, so now we're going to perform a brake test. With your brake test for your CDL test, it needs to be perfect every time. So this is the steps that you need to take to perform a perfect brake test. First thing we're going to do is we're going to bring our air tanks up to the governor cutoff, which is around 120 to 125 psi. And we'll be watching both our air tanks here to make sure that we're rising up our air pressure. So now I'm going to build up my pressure, get it to the governor cutoff. And when it does hit that governor cutoff, you'll hear the ka-ch from the outside. There's our governor cutoff. We're within that 120 to 125 psi range. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to shut our vehicle off. And then we're going to put the key back to the key on, but engine off. First thing we're going to do is our applied leak test, or applied pressure or applied leak test. What we're going to test is to make sure that our air pressure, our air tanks, and our air system does not lose any pressure while under operation. So the first thing we're going to do here, that's on our list, is we're going to depress the parking brake, push it in. We're going to make sure we're not going to roll. And if you're not in a flat area, you'll make sure that you are chalked, and so your vehicle does not roll, or put it in a flat area so you do not roll. What we're going to do is we're going to depress the service brake for 1 minute. And in that minute, we cannot lose more than 3 psi for a Class B or 4 psi for a Class A. So now I'd start my timer, press down the service brake. Now I'm going to be watching my gauges and making sure I do not lose more than 3 psi or any type of movement in the gauges. So now we've come up to our minute. I have not lost more than 3 psi on my gauges. Next, we're going to be doing a low pressure warning test. And in this test, we want to make sure that when we do get to that around 60 psi on our gauges, that our warning light and our audible warning siren comes on as well. To do that, I'm going to fan the brakes to get down to that area, or on our gauges. Okay. We hear our audible alarm come on, and we also have a warning light that is on our dash as well. Next, we're going to be performing our parking brake pop-out test. We're going to make sure that our parking brake pops out when we get to 20 to 40 psi. And while I do this test, I won't be watching my gauges. I'm going to be watching my parking brake and make sure that it does pop out. To do this, also, I'm going to fan and press on the service brake to deplete the air tanks of air to get to that 20 to 40 psi. As you can see, our parking brake popped out, and we were between that 20 and 40 PSI on the gauge. So next we're going to perform another safe start. We're going to check our parking brake, make sure that it did engage. We're going to check our transmission, make sure we are in neutral. Once we do that, we can go ahead and start the truck. At this time, I'm going to give it a little bit more RPMs to bring the air tanks back to the governor cutoff, which is between 120 and 125 PSI. This may take a couple minutes to perform. And as you see, our warning light and our audible alarm did go off. And it should go off around that 90 PSI. And so the reason why we turn the engine back on and build our air pressure tanks back up to the governor cutoff is because we're going to be doing 2 more tests. And for those 2 tests, we need those tanks to be filled and the engine running. The first test is going to be our parking brake tug test. And we're going to make sure that our parking brake holds us when we're in gear and we try to move forward. If it does not hold us, then that means our parking brake is faulty. And as you heard in the background, we heard our governor cutoff go off between that 120 and 125 PSI. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the truck in gear. I'm going to leave my parking brake engaged, and we're going to give it a little bit of RPMs around that 800 to 1,000 RPMs for a few seconds and make sure this vehicle does not move when that parking brake is applied. Now, some of these newer trucks do have an auto neutral where you cannot go into gear when the parking brake is engaged. For your test, you need to explain to the tester what you were doing for the tug test. So for myself, I'm going to go into gear. I have gone into gear. I have left my parking brake engaged. I'm going to give it a few hundred RPMs here, about 800 to 1,000. And we have not moved from the spot that we were at. Again, if the truck had moved with the parking brake engaged, that means that parking brake has failed. Next, I'm going to put it back into neutral, and we're going to go to our last test here, and this last test is going to be the service brake test. And in this test, I'm going to disengage my parking brake. I'm going to put it into gear. We're going to go about 5 miles an hour, and I'm going to hold the steering wheel lightly on both sides, and I'm going to hit the service brake. And what I'm checking to see is if there's any pull in the steering wheel one way or the other, indicating that one side of the brake system is not working. And make sure also too that we actually stop and make sure that our brakes do actually work. First, I'm going to disengage my parking brake. I'm going to put it into gear. Again, I'm going to have a light grip on the steering wheel on both sides. And I'm going to go about 5 miles an hour. And I'm going to hit my parking brake to make sure the steering wheel did not move in one direction or the other, and we actually stopped. Once I'm done with that, I will put it back into neutral, engage my parking brake, and this is where I would notify, if you were taking a test, I would notify the tester that I am done with my parking brake test and my vehicle inspection.